I'm sorry?
The stream's going live.
Thank you. If anyone has a public record, or a public comment request, if you could bring it straight to the front because Krista won't be able to join us. The time is now 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the agenda.
I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Wilkinson, will you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is the approval of the minutes for October 4th, October 18th, and October 23rd. Do I have a motion?
I actually have a comment, if I may.
Sure.
I appreciate Krista's thoroughness on the minutes, but in reviewing those minutes, I've noticed that a lot of the questions that we've requested answers for, I've not personally received. I don't know if other board members also have not, but I would appreciate receiving answers to and follow-up back from the questions asked during board meetings.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion on the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is informational reports. We'll start with Dr. James.
Madam President, members of the board and guests, thank you for being here tonight. So I have a few announcements here that I think are pretty awesome. So first off, we received our rating from Quality First, which is an organization that comes in and reviews the quality of your preschool program, and your considered quality and achieving what you should do at 3 stars. They're about continuous improvement. They're about, growth. And for us to first time have them out with the new preschool to get I believe it was a 4.8 something. So almost at a 5, which is the highest you can get in the first year, is pretty amazing. The only thing that hit us is the playground's not being done. So when the new playground is done, they're supposed to start next week. We are going to try to get them back out, and the reason they took off some points is the distance the kids have to walk to the playground. So if we get those points back, there's a good chance we could have a 5-star, which is hard to get, very hard to get. In fact, I checked with local districts around, and to get a 4 the first time is pretty amazing. So special thanks to Leah and her team. Her teachers did a great job, her staff, and just making Little Falcons awesome. So we're very proud of that, and we'll continue to give you updates as we go. Second thing is, as I shared earlier, we went for a school safety grant last year. I'm happy to share that we received it. It's $500,000, and it is awesome. So very pleased with that. We worked with a grant writer on this, and between his expertise on writing the grant and our ideas on school safety combined with that, we were one of the few districts in Arizona to receive the grant. So that is $500,000 coming in. Remember, we had $300,000 allocated for cameras, so now that is covered in this new grant, so that frees up some additional funding. So I'm very excited that we were able to receive that. I was doing some calculations, it's a rough estimate, but if you take the new grants we've applied for and the donations we received over the last year, it is an additional $1.4 million. We've brought in our team of additional funding to the district, so that's a huge thing for us. So we're very excited. We'll have a planning meeting next week to start the process of moving forward with it. And included in that is the grant writer is going to serve as the manager of this grant throughout the life of it. So that was part of it as well. So we're very happy with that. The new marquee is done at McDowell Mountain, so now it is official. I hung that vinyl sign in very hot weather back in August, and it held up, it looked good, but it just looks much more professional. So Summit West is in the process of finishing up some work. There was a little delay on a few items, but this is in, and it looks awesome, and it just makes it more official. So we're happy that the new marquee is in. The library has started construction, so we've met with Core Construction. I'm very impressed with their professionalism. We meet very frequently, and we've asked a lot of questions, and so far it has been very minimal disruption. We think it'll be completely minimal disruption throughout the process. We're looking at an early February opening for that. So very excited about all the opportunities. When we had our coffee with the superintendent yesterday, Peter Conti, who donated $75,000 for the planetarium, said he did a lot of research on it before deciding to do that, and he shared at the coffee that this is the only known planetarium in a public school that he's aware of in the United States. So this is going to be really cool addition to our dark skies. We had Red Ribbon Week in partnership with the Coalition. The Coalition does great work. We had it successful. I did miss it due to COVID, but I heard great things, and we're just very excited that we have this great partnership. We've extended that partnership onto campus now, and Sean's doing a great job running the Coalition and taking it to the next level. So special thanks to everyone involved in that. The Step It Up fundraiser is beginning. I met with PTO, and they're doing some really cool things this year, and this is the next one on the list for them that they're going to be finalizing. I wanted to show this. This is a project we've been working on for a while now. This is going back over a decade of looking at students who have withdrawn from Fountain Hills schools and went to other schools in Arizona. That was something that's been a priority for me, is stopping kind of that bleed and looking at how do we fix that. And I was very excited to see that last year was the lowest number of kids we had leave the district to go to other schools in this whole time period. You can see there are some spikes in different years. You can see that the last couple of years it was much higher, but it was about a 58% drop in numbers. And if you look at that, those 38 students, some of those are credit recovery kids that went to online schools to try to graduate or get ahead. Some of these are students who moved to other parts of the state. We said Arizona, so some went to Show Low and Buckeye and you name it. So they weren't going to be able to stay with us. So really, there was only a handful of kids that went to Scottsdale or Charter. And so I'm just really happy with that number. And I just wanted to share that with you because if we're going to continue to grow, we have to eliminate the number leaving. And I think that's a testament to our schools and our team of customer service and trying to provide things where people want to stay here. So we're very excited about that. We're going to be sending out this flyer here very soon to some neighboring areas to share with them that we have openings and we have spots available in our schools. And I worked really hard on this to get where when you scan that QR code, it actually takes you to a new marketing website. And I want to share that with you here tonight. So now when you scan that code, it takes you to this site, and this will take you to our original websites for each school. But what we did is we really wanted to focus on the things that we're doing at a high level or things we're proud of. So we have our testimonials we have a parent one, a student one. We have our tradition of excellence here. We have tours available. We have our portrait of a graduate. What we're focusing on is district. Information about our new Innovate 21 program and how, information on how to enroll. A reboot of AP Capstone, something that I've been working hard to build back to where it was a few years back when we had about 20 kids in the program, trying to really expand that. A history of our athletic excellence and a commitment to integrity. This is a video done by the coalition that is really well done about saying no to drugs and alcohol and how we put an emphasis on that with our athletes. Our dark sky community, talking about our connection with the dark skies and how we're implementing some of that in our schools. The playgrounds, how we've reimagined play and how we put an emphasis on that in our schools. And the LU Reteach and Enrich program, which is, I think, according to parents at Coffee, this was not on there yesterday, and they're like, that has to be on there because that is one of our best programs. Little Falcons, again, with our quality first and being very affordable and just really cool things going on. And then our field. So we're this is going to be something that's available for as a marketing tool that we can just scan or quickly put out there, and then we'll continue to update that as we go. So with that, I conclude my comments.
One thing, when you were talking about Peter and his donation and his research on the planetarium, Peter also said that one of the things that he found really great about the planetarium was that it's not just the dark skies, because I've heard a lot of that, well, why can't we just use the Dark Sky Center? But you can research history, science, there's all different kinds of things. You can use it as Google Earth, you can take the kids all over the world. So there's a lot of other cool things that go along with it besides just space.
Correct.
So. Yep. Are there any other questions or comments regarding superintendent's comments?
I really appreciate us going after that safety grant. I think that's awesome, and I always appreciate when we take advantage of those opportunities, so thank you.
Okay, next up we'll go to governing board reports. We'll start with Ms. Reed.
I was able to attend a few coffee meetings, and I just wanted to say again how much I love our staff and how much I love those opportunities for our community members and parents to come and share their concerns or share their ideas, give feedback. I think that I've seen parents take advantage of that, and I've seen our staff respond in very positive ways, building that relationship. At the middle school, when I went to the coffee, they had all their doors decorated for Red Ribbon Week. And my daughter was with me, and she was very impressed by those doors. She remembered a few of them with the slogans. One was like A Nightmare Before Christmas, and it said, doing drugs is a nightmare or something. And she was telling people about it at soccer and stuff like that. She was telling about the different doors, and I'm like, this is exactly the reason we do stuff like that. So that was great. I wanted the middle school to know that that was impactful. We helped at the PBIS store. Again, those kids are great. There was one student who was wearing a soccer jersey, and so we talked about how, my kids play soccer too. And he remembered that he wished us luck when he left, and the next week he was like, "How did you guys do at soccer?" It was just really cute to see the way that the students respond and to them, I'm just a community member, right? They don't know any different. And so it's really cute to see the way they respond to people that take an interest in how they're doing. I wanted to say a special thanks to Kristen Hatfield and Jane Irwin, who I understand did several special things with Veterans Day. We have a wall of veterans, family members of our students up in our elementary, which is really neat. I think that's a neat feature to have. And then also the Legion Riders, and they're doing breakfast with them tomorrow. I think that's going to be really exciting for our elementary school. I also was able to stop by the preschool. I was just stopping by on Halloween to wish our admin there happy Halloween. And Leah was so kind. She took us on a tour of the school and showed us all the different things that they've been working on. And again, all the teachers were just so sweet. They were celebrating Halloween, which was really cute to see tiny little kids in their costumes. And they were everybody was so welcoming and kind. And then the last thing that I wanted to address is the bond. I know that there's going to be some disappointment. I've seen some shared already. And I just wanted to encourage positivity in our district, because I think that, mindset determines a lot. And I think one of the worst things that we could do is feel like our community doesn't support us just because that didn't pass. I think that we need to remember that we do have a very supportive community, and that there's people on both sides of this issue, and that the kids are stuck in the middle. And so I just hope that we can all focus on solutions and on moving forward in the way that's just going to be the best for our district. So, thank you.
Mrs. Settle?
Nothing.
Mrs. Acker?
Yes, I attended a few coffees also at the elementary school and with Kane, and all I hear are positive things from all the parents that come. They're just very excited about everything that's shared and all the positive things about the schools. I love the logo for Little Falcons. I just love that. And what I forgot to do last time we were together is that 3 of us received a certificate for orientation from ASBA. So I have one for Libby and one for Madison.
Thank you.
And the next conference is coming up in December.
Thank you. Mr. Sarr?
Nothing new.
I don't really have a report either, but I'm going to echo Ms. Reed's sentiments that certainly last night the election was not what we had hoped it would be. Last year it didn't pass. We hope that we had more momentum this year, and that we had at least proved some transparency, and that we kind of had gotten our act together a little bit. So, it was a disappointment, but I agree with Ms. Reed. We've got to move forward from this. It was disappointing, but it's not the end of us. And we have some really great staff here, and we have great kids in this district. And the divisiveness in this town has got to stop. The negative signs, the negative posts, the negative rhetoric, it has got to stop. Up until last year's election, I have never sat on this board and had such divisiveness as I have in the past year. It is so disappointing to watch the council, the school board, and our community members fight. That's not how our town is. Fountain Hills has always been special, and I'm so sad as an elected official in this town to know that there is so much animosity. And so I encourage our staff to rise above that. Rise above the negativity, focus on your kids, focus on all the great things going on in our school. Put this election behind you, put the negative behind you, and please stay positive. Stay off of the internet, stay off of Facebook, stay off of the negative comments. Be positive. Let's tell the community why we should continue, why our school is so great. Share the positives that are going on in your classrooms. Share the positives that are going on in all of our schools. Please stop the negativity. Please stop the divisiveness. We've got to move forward and do what's right for our kids in this town. Moving forward, we'll move forward with 2 great students from Stugo. Please come up. Tell us all the great things you guys are doing.
Hello, I'm Aiden Nguyen, and I'm the student body president. I don't know if that's
There's a little button.
There's a button.
Yeah.
On the tall one?
the tall one,
Yep, there's like right in the front, like right here,
Mhm.
there's a little button, push it and a green light will come on. It's flat.
It says push.
It has
Yeah.
two little,
That
it
one
has
I
the
think is
arrows
It might be
next to
different
it.
there.
Theirs is different.
I think it's different.
Oh, is yours different?
I-
I think so. Okay. Dr. J will help you out. Oh, now
It's
you're on.
on
Good
Okay.
job.
It was magic, she touched
You're
it.
hired.
Magic.
Okay. I'm Aiden Wynn, and I'm the student body president of Fountain Hills High School.
And I'm Kathleen Hampton, and I'm the junior class president.
All right, so for our main student event right now, we have a movie night coming up. Fortunately, we are going to have to move the date due to a weather conflict. It'll rain on the Friday that we were planning. So we might just, yeah.
How do you know it's gonna rain?
I know, 10-day forecast or something, yeah. But we were thinking of either moving it a day back or just moving it a Friday forward, but that would conflict with Thanksgiving, so we're just gonna have to think about it a little. But in other spirit terms, we're gonna try to decorate the halls for Christmas, get some, some more momentum on the spirit train, as we really only focus on the dances half the time, so I don't want the students to just feel lackluster throughout the other times of the year.
We're also going to be doing a spirit week, like around Christmas, towards the end of the school year, kind of like we do for dances, just like this one's just for fun and Christmas theme. And as for homecoming, we don't have a set date on it just because there's so many issues with trying to schedule around basketball games, but we're thinking around February. And that's it.
Are you guys feeling good going into winter break this year that you don't have finals right before that winter break? That should help your spirit week, right?
Yeah, I'm hyped.
Because you just finished finals last week, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
How'd that all go? Really good? Are you liking the trimester thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a change, but I was able to kind of cut my load for the first trimester, but now I'm on a 5-class schedule, so.
Good, good.
I feel like there's not like a break after finals.
With
So you missed that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and I'm just gonna mention, we had our calendar committee meeting today, and your teachers brought that up, that they would like a day break between, so we're gonna be working on that for the future.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, next up is the student auxiliary and activity reports. Are there any questions or comments? Go right ahead.
During our board meeting on October 4th, we had discussed getting a closeout with the next month, and I was expecting to see that in this packet, but I didn't.
I will get that to you by, if not by tomorrow, but first thing on Monday.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding the reports? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward. The unaudited financial report, any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move forward to the site council minutes. Go ahead.
I noticed in our middle school site council minutes that it stated that the bathrooms in the F building are still closed. Can we have an update as to why they're closed, what the bathroom situation is for those students then while they are in the F building, and what our plan to remedy this lack of restrooms in that building is?
I'd have to ask Kim about, it's not due to plumbing. It's not due to anything that I'm aware of that is wrong with it. It may be for supervision that she's done that. But we'd have to ask her, so.
What building is F?
It says there's still a work in progress,
F-
so.
F is the
F.
main, there's 2 sets of bathrooms in F, and then there's a set in C, and there's a set in G. So I would have to check with her, but as far as my understanding is that they were done and they were open, but I'll have to check with John and Kim.
Thank you.
We'll find that out. Mhm. Any other questions regarding the site council minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to enrollment. Go ahead.
Sorry. I noticed on this report that we're down an additional 10. I appreciated last year when you gave us the summary page kind of stating where the students went, or why the reasons they left. Is that something that you can provide for us going forward?
I'll
Yeah.
answer that.
Okay.
It's a work in progress. Unfortunately, what we found is
power schools can't get their act together. And so the numbers that we were getting were skewed. They weren't always correct. And so if you followed like the last month and then added in kids that came and took out kids that left, you didn't come up with the right number. So until power schools can figure it out, Krista, we came up with the spreadsheet. So we're working on that. You know, she certainly could give a list, just an addendum of where kids went, but that's why you're not seeing that report from last year.
Yeah, I can provide that. It's not challenging. I can tell you that we had a couple of, I believe we had a couple of families move out of state, and I know one of them had multiple children. So we would just have to go back and look at that. But we get a lot of students. It's been this way for a long time in Fountain Hills. We get a lot of students that move in and move out, move in and move out. And I remember Dr. Sweeney would sit up here and I think that was what his favorite part of the board meeting was, going through how all that ended up at a +1. But it's nothing new. It is that. But like I said, I've been doing a lot of research on the kids who leave to go to competitive opportunities. And that's where we're focusing on how do we continue to keep that number low. But we can give you that data. That's not difficult.
Yeah, we'll do it as an addendum report, but that's why you're not getting that normal power.
So that original report that had the notes was from Power
School.
School?
Power School.
Okay.
When kids would enroll or withdraw, there was a note, like an area that they could put those comments in. But the Power School numbers weren't adding up, and we can't figure out why, and neither can Power Schools.
But, so is there a way for us to still get that report,
Well,
but
that's what we're
with
saying.
this?
We'll do it
Okay.
as an addendum. It won't look like the report you got last
Okay.
year, but we certainly can just print off a list of so-and-so.
The
and-
notes, kind of.
yeah.
And then are you still calling the families that leave to kind of follow up and see
Yes.
why is that part of the?
So
okay.
if they leave to go out of state, I've not been as on that as I probably can be. I could still get feedback from them, exit survey data, but if they're leaving to go to another school that, and are remaining to, living in Fountain Hills, then yes, I do call. I don't always hear back. But all the registrars know that if anyone withdraws and they're going to a competitive school or a school that they're gonna travel to, that they do send that to me, and then I call the parent usually right away.
Okay, thank you for doing that.
Kane, I have a question. For us to get the information, for positive or negative for our report card, do we have to wait until the school where they re-enrolled sends us something? Especially if they're going out of state? Rather than us just saying somebody left and they went out of state, do we need to get records from them or requesting our records?
We do for graduation, yes.
Okay.
So for graduation, if a student enrolls here from another school district and they stay 3 days and they never enroll anywhere else, they go on our dropout rate. Yes.
Okay.
So what we've done in the past is Jason Henslin used to call when I was principal everyone who left. And we kept a spreadsheet to make sure that the state had all those records correct, and then we would run it by that. I implemented that this last year when I came back with the high school, when they did their senior watch list as part of that. So now Jessica, Kane, and I just went through the 2022 cohort and found 11 errors. So we are reporting that to them. But it should be done on the fly and not after the fact, and that is something that just got, I think, dropped with turnover and transition of leadership. So it is back online, and we already did the 2023. Like, we already know there's a couple there too that we'll have to report, but it was much fewer. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I watch that very closely.
Okay, next up is public comments. Call to the public. This is the time for the public to comment. Time limits may be allocated on public comment at the discretion of the board president for the board to efficiently complete its business. The board reserves the right to prohibit any comments made in a discourteous or threatening manner. Complaints about specific individuals, students, or personnel are discouraged. Personnel issues should be directed to the appropriate staff member or administrator per district policy. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration at a later date. First up, I have Kim Bartman. Kim, we allot 3 minutes, and so I will give you a 30-second warning when you're approaching your 3-minute mark.
Okay, thank you. First off, I'm not going to go off the cuff much because I'm going to get emotional. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to read. I just want to thank everyone for their hard work and working to try to get the bond passed. I appreciate. I'm going to go ahead and read because I'm going to be a mess. Thank you, Dr. Jagodinsky, for all your efforts to educate the people of Fountain Hills about the needs of the children who are our future, the educators who dedicate their lives, and the staff who support them all. We appreciate the work you and your staff have done to address and fix the audit concerns that occurred during the previous administration and to improve the learning environment. Thank you for putting the future of Fountain Hills children first. Let's continue to work so this attitude will radiate throughout our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is Libby Sutton.
So everybody in this room has our why. That's why we do anything. My why here happens to be my 9-year-old son, who we once were told would never walk or talk. He had a feeding tube, oxygen, and he still struggles to eat today. In fact, he's not even able to drink water like you or I. He has a wheelchair for long walks, as walking around our local stores can wear him out at times. It's strange to me that I have to stand here before you tonight advocating as his parent for him to receive the same public education other children in our district are receiving today. In August, I consulted with a special education attorney so that I could fully understand the new guidelines being set forth for children to access education services. As a former public school teacher and a family who has never taken ESA funds, I've always wanted to engage in our public school system. However, fast forward to October, we're less than 24 hours before we were to have a planning meeting for his educational needs. I received an updated meeting notice, including an attorney. Fountain Hills Unified School District decided to hire against me. Yes, the district I've been elected to represent hired an attorney to fight my son from accessing an education in the same way he'd been receiving it for the past year. Contrary to what some have said, attorneys are rare at IEP meetings and are not there to help the students or the parents. They are hired to put roadblocks up to the children and families wanting to access special education. Additionally, the lawyers waste additional district resources. Based on what I've personally paid my attorney that I had to hire to represent my son, I can only imagine the wasteful spending that is currently happening by the district to stop my son from accessing the same education that he has in the past. Additionally, my attorney has shared with me that a staff member is stating that I'm harassing them through multiple emails and phone calls. My attorney has asked for a copy of the multiple emails and has received none. I have never called the staff member, and there are no emails because I've sent one. At this point, our situation feels a bit targeted. Finally, I'd like to speak to the funding component. My attorney has stated that if a child is enrolled and on an IEP, it doesn't matter if the child is in the seat for 5 minutes or 5 full days. The IEP stipulates the attendance, thus driving full funding, no matter the minutes he attends. Why would the district choose to utilize even more resources and lose even more funds to fight what is in the best interest of a child? I've heard the presentation on the Innovate 21 program for the gifted, and I'm thankful that the district is addressing the needs of these students. However, I've met with countless parents of special needs children who aren't able to access their children's services or set dates for meetings. I am hopeful the district will also meet the needs of children on IEP 504 plans and ensure that as a district, we are choosing students over politics. Thank you.
That concludes the public comments. We'll start with our action items. First up is the personnel report. Are there any questions or comments regarding the personnel report?
Question?
Go ahead.
What are our guidelines regarding leaves? Are they unlimited time frame, or do they have to return to work or provide doctor what?
So they can be 12 weeks.
Can you come up? Because people state that they can't hear.
Got it.
So they can be 12 weeks or more, we can do it up to a year. The two that are on there are under 12 weeks, so Dr. J is the one who can approve them. If they're over 12 weeks, they come to the board.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Are there any other questions regarding the personnel report? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move we approve the personnel report.
I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the payroll vouchers. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I move that we approve the payroll vouchers.
A second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is accounts payable vouchers. Are there any questions or comments? Yep. Okay, we'll start with Libby. Go ahead.
So on voucher listing 2011 for College Board, I noticed that we paid a late fee. For Flynn Scientific, it was past due. And that would be it on that one. Just some explanations as to why. And then I noticed on voucher 2013, we didn't receive a contract and a PO for the AstroTurf, and I'd just like to ensure that that is out there and available. And then the WEX purchases, we're paying finance charges for WEX, and I know that that was one of the audit findings, so I'd like to ensure that we fix that. And I don't know, it appears that we're getting a paper copy of that bill, because I saw a fee for that, so is there a way to get that automated to ensure, because so far our finance charges are over $1,500 and I find that concerning. And then Dr. J, I just had a question regarding the behavior specialist that I'm seeing with Soliant Health. Can you tell me which site they are for?
Is that,
Mr. Wilkinson was raising his hand, so I'm assuming it's his site.
Yeah.
So you actually have two behavior specialists
No,
then?
no. So the one with Soliant, so we were gonna hire her as a behavioral, it's not what it's listed on there, and I can't remember what the exact term is, but she's a para. So she's a para educator for us. She was a one-on-one, now she's just in out of classrooms. So why they have her coded like that still, that is on Soliant's part, not ours. And I can get in contact, we've been trying to get them to change that, but she is a para.
and there's no one higher. So,
No.
and it's only going to get worse each year, so.
Yeah. So she's just a contracted para through them.
So is she a para making behavior specialist rate, or
She's
did that?
making whatever Soliant charges. All these companies like Delta T, Soliant, they all charge way more than we pay our employees, but we can't hire anybody. Same with all districts, they're all turning to these special education contracting companies, so whatever they charge us hourly, and I was able to talk them down from what they were, that's what.
I've brought it
we're
up
paying.
at every superintendent meeting I've been at, that this is very concerning. And no one has stepped up with me to say that. So it's kind of like, yeah, and then it's on to the next topic. And now I just saw the first one ever. Now there is a group doing math teachers, and they're now contracting math teachers. So like I said, where this is headed in the next couple of years, it's already hard enough to hire, and now you have specialty teachers going contracted, and districts are, I talked to the state about special ed. There's nothing you can do. You have to provide it, you have to have somebody in there, and you have to pay what the rate is. So we've worked hard to look at multiple companies and negotiate what we can, but yes, there's going to be more of that coming. There's just not enough teachers out there, especially in special ed, to fill the need.
Well, and I appreciate that, but a behavior specialist to me requires additional certification than a para, so I just want to ensure that we're not paying a higher rate.
No,
We're not.
No, I made that really clear with them, that we're paying a para rate for them, so why they still have it listed like that, I don't know, but we're not paying a rate for the higher person.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Is that the end of your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, I had a couple. I was having a hard time accessing the file, which I wasn't sure if that was on my end or not, but, so these are the questions that I had so far. There was a late fee charged for our Chase account, and it looks like it was charged and then reversed, but then it still reflected that year-to-date there were some fees.
On what voucher?
It was in the one, I looked it up in the folder. It might, the date was 11/7, so that was probably more recent.
Okay,
than
yeah,
what's
so
on this
that's
one.
not
Okay.
anything that's up for approval.
Okay. On 10/12/23, we received an invoice from AFLS. This is just a small thing. The invoice was still addressed to Karen, so I feel we probably need to update that if that, that information's changed. Yeah, I'm sure it's just gonna be a ongoing thing for a while. She was here for a long time. Okay, so then there's the Summit West signs on 9/29. Is that just for the elementary one that we just got, or?
No, there's several signs through Summit West. There's the high school marquee does not work, it's being replaced. The Little Falcons one, I believe, does not work, it's being replaced. The remodel of the elementary one and the new middle school are all part of that. And the signage at the district office and middle school is also a part of that.
So this is, because this amount was only 20, and
That 20 is for the signage, that is for one piece of it, yes. They're broken up into different POs and different projects.
do we have a total for the Summit?
Yes, we do, and you guys approved it earlier when we went over 100,000.
Yes,
So
but the
we
reason.
can get you another number, yes.
Yeah, if I can get an updated total, because the reason I'm asking is because there was that change in wording that had me concerned, because we originally approved on a 119,000 number, and then in the second time it was supposed to come up and then got removed, there was no number attached, and so I would like
We
an
can give
updated.
you, we can give you the update.
Updated
It
total,
is,
okay.
it is, there's just several projects that are going on with that, so yes, we
Okay.
can get you an update.
Thank you. Oh, and then.
But we haven't added anything that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Since then.
The high school mark.
The
high
original
school
vote was
wasn't part of
only
it.
for the high school marquee, and that was
Middle
No,
price-
it was the middle
That was
school.
the
Oh, middle
school.
school, and it
And
was
then
at
we-
118, that's why I'd
And
like
we-
an
And it
update.
got, and there was some, we reduced that. So the final marquee that I think that it ended up being was reduced in cost, so that was part of it. The high school, the actual digital board does not work. So we've not had any messages up this year. It's totally dead. So we had to update that as well, but that was part of that cost, so, because we reduced the other one down. So I'll get you guys updated numbers.
So we were able to add in the repair for the high school
Yes.
without increasing the cost.
Yeah, I mean, there's a total cost that went over the 100,000 that we talked about, but yes, there was some additional needs, and we have to have working marquees at each site for our parents to know what's going on.
Yeah, my question is just because when we voted, it was for the one, and that was a high price, and now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at least, it looks like, and so I don't see how we could have negotiated it down from there, but thank you. I'll appreciate those numbers. And then a new question based off of the public comment, the payment to Gus Rosenfield, that's our attorney, correct? That was
No.
not for that IEP meeting? Or that was the, no, that's the,
It's for the bond.
the audit, or, oh, that was the election, okay. Okay. And then for the WEX, the finance charge, Alicia, when I originally sent you some questions about WEX, from what I understood, we weren't paying anything additional.
Understanding as well.
Okay,
I did reach out to John and I reached out to Wes to
Okay, because, I mean, and when I asked how many cards there were, maybe that's a way to decrease something like that, because that does sound like a very high finance charge to be paying if we're paying off the balance each time. So that's it for now.
Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move to remove voucher number 2012 from the accounts payable vouchers to have a separate vote.
Okay. So I have a motion to I have a motion to approve, I have a motion to remove voucher 2012 from the payable vouchers. So we'll vote on that first. I'll second that. All in favor of removing that so it has its own vote, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so 2012. Be a note taker too. Okay, so now, on the remaining payable vouchers, do I have a motion on those?
I move we approve the remaining ones.
I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So 3-2. Okay, and then, are you looking to vote on 2012? Okay, so on payroll voucher 2012, do I have a motion?
I motion that we approve the accounts payable voucher 2012.
Correct. I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so I have 4-1. Okay, motion carries. All right, got it. Sorry, without Krista, I have to keep notes too. So, all right, next up is the donations. I had asked Krista, there was one donation missing off of the list, but there was an actual form for it. And then there were a couple that were on the list, but there was no form. So she has sent all of that to you. It doesn't change anything other than now you have the complete information. I would like to thank Albertson Safeway for their $15,000 donation. That's amazing. They gave it to the middle school, the elementary school, Little Falcon Preschool, the high school, and the band. They each got $3,000, so that's amazing. Also like to thank Fountain Hills PTO for their large donation of over $12,000. And all the other donations are always appreciated. Do I have a motion on donations?
So moved.
A second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Could I ask that we have the Golden Eagle Foundation come and speak with us?
Sure, we can
We
do
haven't heard
that
from them in a while.
most likely after the first of the year.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the updated 23-24 calendar. We saw this at a prior board meeting, but apparently we over-approved. And so now the last day of school that we now made a full day for the high school should have actually been a half day for the high school. So we need to reapprove the calendar again,
Can I ask if we've checked this and double checked this?
right?
We're all good. Okay.
Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the schedule change.
I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Please don't bring any more calendars till there's a new one. The certified staff resignation and waiver, Dr. J?
I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Ms. Brown, would you like to talk about this? Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding the staff member who resigned and is asking for a waiver on her penalty? Nothing.
I mean, I don't really know what to ask because I obviously wasn't there and don't know the situation, although I do understand some of what she said, like what she claims, and then I know it's something that I had actually, when I heard about the reset room, it was a concern of mine that that would start happening. And so I would like to know if there were things, like steps taken to address what she saw as a weakness in this approach to behavioral issues so that we could try and work with her to solve the problem that she was having.
Yes, I spent 5 weeks with her, 3 hours a day, almost, I can't say every day, but pretty much every day, addressing it. And I don't believe that the rest of the teachers feel that way, so I'll leave it at that.
Go ahead.
With that being said, can we have some clarification, please, as to why the suggestion that we waive the liquidated damages?
I appreciate that the teacher came back and gave me time to find a replacement. We were able to bring in Linda Ness, who is a legend in this district, and immediately her impact has been felt in that grade level, and it is just completely different. So I, whenever we have an employee that doesn't want to return, I try to ask them to give me time to work through it for the sake of the kids and the families. And she did do that to an extent, so I was appreciative of that. I can say that in 25 years in this profession, I never seen it like this, like I have in the last few years. It's totally changed. So, but yeah, I do commend her for coming back and giving me a chance to find a suitable replacement. And we do have that, and Linda is doing wonderful work with those kids. It's year 49 for her. So actually, I'm sorry, it's year 50. She wanted to get to 50. So she's wonderful.
I love teachers that retire and then come back. My question is, she put it that she's requesting a waiver due to circumstances beyond the control of the employee. Is she talking about the behavior? I mean, that's what she's saying. She didn't move, her husband wasn't transferred, like, there's nothing like that. It's just that the behaviors were too bad.
And behaviors were addressed. I want to be clear on that. I said I spent 5 weeks.
Right, no, I understand.
I have a couple
Ensuring
more
of that.
questions. Because she mentions that there were no one-on-one meetings with parents, and I thought that that was something that was done, yeah, Kevin, thank you. Because I thought that that was something that was done fairly early on, especially if there's recurring behavioral issues. I feel like we should try to get the parents in there.
That is not accurate what she wrote.
Okay.
So one-on-one, disciplinary action was taken for every kid that was taken to refocus room, every single one. So could more support have been given? Yes. I will take full responsibility for that as a building leader. Parents were notified, students faced disciplinary action. We had many meetings with that grade level team about the discipline issues as well as what we were going to do to address them. They were all on board with the plan of the refocus room. So that piece of it is inaccurate.
Okay, and do you feel that the refocus room worked, or are these shortcomings?
I have data that I can share with you that it proves that it does work. The number of kids, when we started it was high because it was something that they were getting used to.
And I was bringing them down personally. So.
But once parents were contacted, because the way that it worked was they got their name on the board, they got a check mark, and then the third time they were escorted out of the classroom. Because students cannot learn when kids are misbehaving. And I'm not going to sit back and let kids not learn because we're just letting these kids misbehave, some of the students misbehave. So the learning environment is impacted, then that student does not have the right to let other children fail. If they would like to sit there and not learn and they want to do something else with their time, that's up to them. I do my very best, our teachers do our very best to try to motivate those students. But at the end of the day, the learning environment has to be there for all the students who want to be there to learn.
I completely agree, and I think that that's why we have the expectation that, when you come to this place, you're here to learn.
Correct.
However, my concern is that with these kids that are experiencing these behavioral issues, especially routinely, and I shared this with you when the reset room first came up, even before I ran for board. I was concerned that some of these kids would see that as a get out of class free card.
No.
It has happened. It has happened.
It is a
You've shared with me
concern.
it's happened, and
It
so
a
I know
concern.
it does happen. However, there has to be just some plan in place that it doesn't become something that kids, when they act up, they get to go and play in in a
I
room.
want to share on that. So we did this at the high school when I was principal, part of our A+ application. The number of kids that went a second time was extremely low. A third time was even lower than that. When it's done correctly, it works. I want to clarify a couple things. One, we went to 2 disruptions and did a removal. The second thing is that the parent was notified that day, number one, and on a second offense, they had to come in for a conference and meet with us. Once that took place, those behaviors went away. Second thing I want to point out is that since Ms. Ness has been back, we do not have those issues
I've had one.
in that classroom or in that grade level. So, again, this is a variety of things. It's a new teacher. You can see the number of referrals written in 1 quarter. All right, that's not something you see very often
Correct.
in a classroom. Since Ms. Ness has been back, we have not had any of those issues. So again, what Kevin is doing is working. I have total confidence that he is creating a school of discipline and that those kind of behaviors are not tolerated in our district, and parents are notified, and there are consequences through the code of conduct when they're violated.
Mr. Wilkinson, can you explain to me when a child is sent to so my kids went K through 12, so I'm familiar with the reset room that used to be at McDowell. And, once my kids were at elementary, we didn't have the reset room anymore. But can you explain to me what happens when a child is sent to the reset room? What are they required to do there?
So they bring their work for the remainder of the class, and they work on that work with an adult, obviously with a certified staff member. That's when then we contact the parents and let them know that they've been, and what they did to be escorted out of the classroom. Essentially, it's a disruption of the learning environment. But we notify the parents right away, and the student works on the work that they would be working on in that class that they were escorted out of.
So previously, when children were sent to the reset room many years ago, they had to write 2 notes. One was an apology to the teacher, and one was an apology to the parents. And then that apology was sent, obviously given to the teacher, and the other one was sent home to the parent. So I may give you that recommendation, that while I understand that they could be working on their work with another adult, I agree with Ms. Reed that I don't want it to become like a little study hall for them where they don't have to be in class and that they can pretty much just work on what they want to.
Sure.
There has to be a penalty for them being there.
They lose their recess if they are escorted to the.
But if they have to write a letter home to their mom or their dad or a grandparent or whoever their guardian is, sometimes they take a little more seriously.
Sure. We have them fill out a reflection sheet as well that reflects on the behavior and what they did wrong, and then we review that with them. So I forgot to mention that. That's the first thing that we do, and then we move to making sure that they finish the work that they've been assigned.
And many students don't like to write, and so when they have to write, and you based on the grade, you can make it based on the word count. You could make it based on paragraphs. I mean, the older they get, the more intense it has to become. I think you'll find that your behavior, children decide to stay in class.
Duly noted.
And I would be careful taking away recess, because I feel like a lot of times the behavior kids need to
We
get
try
their
to
workers out.
reduce.
Yeah, that's the last resort.
It's a
but
reduction.
it's,
I mean, it is a very good,
At
like,
the elementary level,
incentive.
there's not too many, there's not too many other things that we can do in terms of losing a privilege. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, we don't want, the recess is a time for them to burn off energy.
Yeah,
and spend time with
absolutely.
their peers. Like, we recognize the importance of that.
I think if you make them write, it'll change their behavior.
So,
Oh, yeah.
and we'll definitely take that to heart, and we'll definitely talk about that, because I think you're definitely onto something there.
Well, and last question with this, do you feel that you guys did everything that you could to try and make it work, and that it just wasn't working?
Correct,
Regardless,
yes.
okay.
I don't think it was a good fit.
And I want to say, even though I had these questions, I've been in the school, and I see the way that you guys handle the students, and I think it's very well done. There's no way you're going to stick that many little kids in a building and there's not going to be issues. I have 2, and it's chaos. And so, I commend you guys, and I've seen the way you guys handle some of the kids that, maybe
we have
throw
a lot of
tantrums. And
practice,
it's
so.
just, you guys are doing well.
Thank
So,
you very much.
Well, and the other thing is, in her letter, she wrote that no students were suspended, We need to remember, these are K through 5 kids. I don't want to see K through 5 kids suspended. I mean, obviously, there are
There are
behaviors.
reasons, there are
right.
reasons for that, but
But for
that
acting
needs to
up
be
in
pretty
class,
egregious
yeah.
violations of our code of conduct for that to take place. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, they need to be in school, and, you know, I'm all for finding a way for discipline and for them to behave in classrooms, but I certainly don't want to see us start implementing a lot of suspensions K through 5.
I agree with you 100%, and that's a very antiquated mentality, so, but it still exists, unfortunately, so.
Yeah, we can't just send kids home, cuz.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you for
Any
your
other
time.
questions?
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions regarding the certified staff resignation and waiver?
I appreciate the fact that at this point, we are asking, you know, to do the waiver, because other times we don't. So this is something that obviously a lot of things were done, and the teacher did come back, but it still didn't work, so I think we should accept this.
Maybe, did you have another question?
I was actually had a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to motion to table the waiver portion in light of the documentation we received tonight to discuss with legal before we vote on the waiver.
I second.
So I have a motion to only approve the staff resignation with the waiver tabled.
Correct.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
That's a 4-1 vote. And Libby, will you send whatever question you have regarding the waiver to myself and Kane, and we will get that answered from the attorney. Thank you. Next up is a purchase over $100,000 for Extra Play, which is the third piece of playground equipment that we had discussed that was on back order when we approved the McDowell Mountain Playground. Dr. J, would you like to add?
Madam President, members of the board, yes. So in our original design and plan of the playgrounds, the third piece that the children that were part of the process really enjoyed and really wanted was there was concern that it wasn't going to be available. And so we went forward with Dave Bang, and I shared with you that we spent a lot of time on the playgrounds, and that this was a different company that had this piece. They use the same installers, the same flooring. They work together to make sure it's planned out correctly. But he notified me that the piece is now available and can be in as early as January installed. And so that's the third piece. And just to reiterate, you know, this is going back to the original, you know, discussion we had on consolidation and playgrounds. There's always been that third piece that was there. We just didn't know what it was going to be. It really comes down to a safety issue for Kevin. You have two pieces of playground equipment that can house around 100 to 125 kids, and we're going to, at times in the mornings and other times of the day, have 375 at one time. And so having the third piece of equipment balances that out for the kids. The second thing is it becomes also an issue if that piece is not there, then Kevin has to move 100 to 150 students to a different location, and there has to be supervision for that, and then that also cuts into that morning planning time for teachers that we've allotted for them as part of their rotation. So the ACTIC group that does the counterterrorism group that came out and did our vulnerability assessments, one of their findings was that the playground location we've selected is the safest, and that's where they believe, in conversation with them, that would be the best location for them. And so this will allow Kevin to have all of the kids in one area, and it will allow him to have appropriate supervision in there, but not spaced out to a different location like he is now. It's been very challenging on McDowell Mountain this first quarter. They have kids at, all over the place to try to make it work while we're waiting on the playground equipment. It's scheduled to start next week. I believe is the first piece is going to start coming in, and it's supposed to be done by the end of the month. So With that, I do recommend that we complete this project that we started back in December.
Other questions regarding the extra play?
I'm just gonna make my same comment because I see that at the end, Extra Play is part of the 1 GPA co-op and does not require 3 bids to procure. So I will be a no vote because I know that you swear by this method, but I feel that we need to increase competition to guarantee that we are getting the lowest price. And so until I start to see some bids, I will continue to be a no vote.
Yeah, and I just, on this one, I will let you know that playground companies only work with certain vendors, and you can't buy that piece of equipment from anybody but Extra Play. They're the only ones that can sell that piece of equipment. Just like the other two we picked out can only be sold by Dave Bain. So it is a very unique market. I spent months researching this, and I can tell you that we did not go with one vendor for the whole thing. We did break it up into 2 to get exactly what we wanted. So I understand where you're coming from, but I just want you to know there is no other vendor that can purchase that piece of equipment but Extra Play.
Are there other questions?
I have a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
So I want to go back to what you just said, Dr. J, and you said the first playgrounds that we've ordered will hold 100 to 125 students?
That's what they roughly shared with me is, I mean, it varies, but I'm going to say that that's probably pretty close.
Okay, and then this one would hold how many?
Around the same as what they shared with me. It might be, like I said, I mean, it could be one's 125 and one's 90 and one is 110. And again, they're recommendations, but it's about spacing out the kids into different opportunities to play. So I don't want to give a specific number. I'm just going to share that the 2 pieces alone, I believe, and Kevin believes, will make it difficult for him to have the extra grade levels. We had 2 playground pieces at McDowell Mountain, and we added 2 grade levels to McDowell Mountain, so having the 3rd piece to me and to Kevin and to everyone that was part of this makes sense.
So I'm going to go back to something that was said earlier, and I feel like we need to take a look at our core infrastructure at this point. We have to face the fact that we did not receive the $25 million bond, so we have to try to figure out what we're going to do. And I don't even know how much we have left in our reserves. Does anybody have what we have left in our reserves?
In capital, we have 1.5 million.
So if we spend the $200,000 on this playground equipment, that leaves us falling short then on our roofs, our AC units, etc. Would that be a correct statement?
I would say that there are priorities, there are a lot of priorities that need attention, and we cannot obviously address them all. And this all was decided to do the consolidation after the 2022 bond failed and the override failed. So coming out of that bond and override failure, the board and the facility use team decided they wanted to move forward with consolidation at a $2.5 million budget. We are under that budget at this time by around $400,000 to $500,000. Okay, so this is a completion of that original plan that we agreed upon to try to grow enrollment and to provide a safe environment for the kids. So yes, you could make that argument on any purchase moving forward, that the money could go to something else. But I want to mention that we just brought in an additional grant of $500,000 that frees up money for cameras that was allocated. We have other grants in the works now and additional fundraising coming in for this year that from donors that did last year. So like I said, I mean, this to me is a safety issue. I'm just gonna say it. That's what I believe. If you have a lot of kids playing in one area, the bathrooms are right there, the cafeteria is right there. It's the safest, best location. And it allows Kevin and his team to have some relief on their duty schedule. Right now, they're on a 3-week rotation, and we're trying to get it to a 6 to 8 week rotation so they can work on planning and formative assessment data and all the things that need to happen to improve their academics. And right now, they're not getting that time because of the rotation that we have it with. And that's just the fault of construction at this time, right? That things are all behind schedule, but they're gonna be done soon.
Do you have another question?
I'll pass.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the third piece of the playground. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. Next up is information discussion. First up is IJND-E, which is an exhibit. Exhibits and regulations do not have to be approved by the board, but they are here for notice. So Dr. J, will you?
Yeah, Madam President, members of the board, guests. It came to my attention this year that we did not have a good permission form for movies. I've been very clear with the staff that when you're showing a movie in class, that it needs to be principal approved, it needs to be appropriate, it needs to be, within the guidelines of the board policy. When this came to me and I said, where is the permission form? It was a made-up one. It didn't fit what I felt it needed to be. I was always, as a principal, very, very adamant about there should not be movies playing in classes unless they are approved. And there has to be an opt-out option for parents, or if they don't want to be a part of that, there's alternative assignments. So I worked with Dave Paoli, and we found a exhibit that I felt met the needs of what we were trying to do. It is in alignment with our policy, and he did approve that this one would work for us. And it's just it's just an exhibit. So.
Are there any questions regarding the permission slip for movies?
Yeah, just from experience, distinguishing what's a video and what's a movie, documentaries and so forth, what needs to be part of the permission slip? I
think it comes down to, as a former history teacher, I showed a lot of clips of things, but they weren't, they were still within the board policy of what the overall, rating was. So a lot of documentaries and things like that don't have ratings. They're, school approved. You buy them through school resources. This is more for Hollywood, movies. We actually bought a license to make sure we are legitimate in that. We're not violating any copyright laws. So if we show a video on a rain day, say at McDowell, and they want to throw on Finding Nemo or whatever it is, the board policy states at G level, PG, all those things, and this is just, again, it's to rein in a little bit that if you're going to show a movie based on a book or based on something you taught, that you've at least had that conversation with your principal's on board, and then it does, and that's that kind of second check to make sure it falls within board policy, so there's not an R-rated movie being played in a classroom that is violating board policy. So, if you don't check that, things just happen in classrooms, and so we're trying to say to our teachers, here's the exhibit, here's what you need to fill out, here's the process, and go from there.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, again, that was just an informative piece. Next up is procurement. Ms. Reed, you requested this, so you can drive the bus.
I love that Krista included all my questions because then I don't have to toggle back and forth. And I'm not sure if you wanted to address the question since you have
I
them?
will
or do you
try
want me
to,
ask them?
I will try to lead the answers to the best of my ability and then rely on my team if need be, okay?
Okay. Yeah, we might need you up here.
Okay.
Okay. I'm a little discouraged that John's not here because I feel like a lot of these questions are going to involve him. So I guess one of the main things that I would love to understand is just the steps that we go through with any kind of need. I mean, give me an example of a small one when a teacher needs notebooks or something, and so, you know, what does she do? Or when we need structural, what does someone do for that? Where does it start? What are the steps that it goes through?
So on smaller needs, teachers go to their principal. We have not done in a long time, for as far as I can remember, a budget specific to a site for, you know, this. We're small enough where it can just come through as a need, and then we address it. I feel like if you say, here's $10,000, a lot of times I can tell you as a principal, you're gonna find a way to spend it because you don't wanna give it back. So we kind of took that out of the equation and said, we're small. So what basically the process would be is they'll meet with their principal will bring forward the need. We'll meet with, typically it'll be with me, and if I need Alicia at that point, I'll bring her in, and we'll have a discussion about what is the need for, how does this relate to their grade level teaching, what they're trying to accomplish, do you support it, are you offering the same thing to other people? So we'll go through that on a smaller need, and then we'll look at, is it a specific item that they want, or is it, can we go out and look for it, the best price, or what options we have. If it's a larger need, then that kind of starts with a site walk. So we've done site walks, Tyler and I have done them several times, with John, without John, with local people that want to serve as consultants for free, that want to be a part of solutions. We walked with Todd Harris. Todd has done a lot of work here. He built schools. And we do these sidewalks and we look at what are our biggest needs that we need to address. And then from there, we would then go to finance and look at what we have already budgeted in that category, that area. Is it something that is immediate? Is it something that we can address at a later time? Is it school facility board worthy? Can we bring it to school facility board and see if that falls under there? And then from there, we go through the procurement process.
Okay, and what or who determines if the need qualifies for district action? Like, I'm sure there are some things that are kind of more teacher wants, like decoration type things, that maybe you guys have them take care of, but what qualifies as district responsibility and who determines that?
I will say we do not get a lot of requests from our staff for items. I think one of the things you look for as a principal is it something they're passionate about? Is it something I can support them in that passion? They have a fire for that. It's something they really want to do. And can I support that without it becoming, a larger issue of like, I gotta buy something now for everybody, right? So it really does become like, a lot of times we'll say at the end of the year, what capital needs do you need for next year? Give us an idea what you're looking for. And then we'll take those capital needs back and say, okay, these are things that we can do. These are things that we may not be able to do. That usually goes to principals, and principals will come back to me with any of the needs that they have, so. I think it's a little different, like coming from Scottsdale District, it was a different process because there was 20-some schools, right? And there's only one Dennis Rayler who was in charge of that, right? And so it was a little bit different process, but it was very similar in a lot of ways. Like I would call them in and we'd do a site walk. I'd say, here's what I want to do. We'd go to cabinet. Cabinet would decide if they're going to support it, if they're not going to support it. And if not, how can I still get this done another way? I think being small here, there's just a few players involved in that, so we're able to do that pretty quickly.
And then other board members feel free to jump in, because I'll just keep going.
Go ahead.
Let me add something. In all my years of teaching, I don't remember ever asking for anything like this. So it's something more that something big is needed for the school, so the principal brings it.
I'll give you an
Well,
example of one recently.
Yeah.
So kindergarten came to us and wanted things for the team room for the kids to play, okay? And they felt that with the playgrounds not being done and also to accomplish some of the things they wanted, that they came to us. They came to us with a Amazon basket of things that they wanted. I walked through it with them. I asked, is this exactly what, is there another one? Is there something else? Sometimes it's very specific, but they were very respectful on the cost. It wasn't big ticket items. It was, they put a little puppet show thing in, things that we felt, is gonna help those kids with that imaginative play. So and I think our PTO helps a lot with that. They give a couple $100 a year, and a lot of teachers use that, and then they don't ask for anything beyond that. So we don't get a lot of requests, and I don't get a lot of requests from principals either. I can say as a principal, I gave Rob Allen a lot of requests, but they're usually denied.
And our teachers are actually really great. So usually in the summer, our teachers create Amazon wish lists. And so the community usually goes through and purchases everything on their wish list. They get, like Ms. Cooper was a new teacher this year, so she had decorations for her room, she had markers and stickers and a chair for her room, that she could read to the kids in and things like that. And so the community's been very helpful on donations like that. And then also, you love grants, and our teachers are really good. When Ms. Reichler wanted to do the middle school garden, she did,
Donors choose. Yeah.
And so a lot of teachers, if it's a project, they'll do that. So it's usually only when a team wants something, like Dr. J was saying, when the kindergarten team wanted something. When my kids were in kindergarten, they all wanted the ABC rugs. And so, because then everybody got a square, and there's 26 squares. And then they actually asked PTO for that. And then PTO gives them each $200. Every teacher gets $200. Oh, is it 3 now? Oh, great. So $300 to buy their classroom supplies. So it's usually only projects for a team that gets requested for funding.
And it's usually something they're passionate about. Golden Eagle also, I just went through all the awards. They did thousands of dollars this year of projects. I met with them. We go through each one. She wants to make sure, Jenny Beth wants to make sure that I feel like it's a good project, it's worthwhile spending. So they just did a bunch of those, and then Ms. Beck just did one for a garden at the new school, and she got, I believe she got approved for that, a percentage of it. And I said, we'll fix, we'll come in and work with you on the other percent of that. So I think for the smaller scale items, it's that. For the bigger scale items, it's, we rely on our day crew. Rick just met with me yesterday. There's some maintenance that needs to happen, so he'll let me know that, this group's coming in to work on this, or this group's coming in to work on that, here's why. But we're small and we see each other a lot, so I think we're able to meet and discuss what is a priority and what is something that can wait, because, different things come up all the time that we have to address.
Okay, how are things budgeted and expensed as far as how it's allocated? Because, I understand that there's restrictions on how we can spend certain money. So since there's an allocation of a certain amount per student, is that then broken down and said, this much goes towards these needs, this much goes towards these needs, or how is that?
So we use a lot of historical data to look at, what we can expect on certain areas like AC needs and repairs to, for example, painting's going to be a yearly summer update. We want to keep these things looking good, so we're going to need to allocate now, moving forward, money each summer to do that preventative maintenance, right?
And that's, I guess, kind of what I'm asking. Is there a certain percentage of the allocated funds per student that should be earmarked for things like maintenance of the building that they're
Yeah,
in.
by student, I think that's a Tyler question on how he does the full budget. But yes, within the budget, he has allocated certain amount for each site, certain amount for different categories, and the goal is to obviously stay within that so that in the end, everything works out as you hope to. But yeah, there's things that come up that you don't expect. I've spent a lot of time on school facility board in the last probably month and a half. I've taken that over from John because he's just got too many things going on. And actually, myself, Alicia, and Tyler have worked on that. And we're going to continue to bring projects to schools, to the school facility board. Those can help with some of the bigger projects that you're talking about, like a roof repair or a fire panel repair and things like that. Okay.
And then how do we handle procurement with known maintenance costs? Like we have, with things like the HVAC and air conditioning and plumbing and, there's going to be costs that you need to plan kind of throughout the year.
And that's what we have, that's what Tyler does. And again, this is where, when we use these companies from the cooperatives that know our systems and do that kind of work, it makes a difference. And we saw that with a couple of examples that I've shared this year, that certain companies won't work on our equipment. It's beyond them. That's not something they can do. The chiller takes up half the size of this room that those chillers are in, and they're massive, and there's just not something that anybody can work on. So John works with a variety of them. He uses different companies, and they know our equipment, and they're able to get that work done in a timely manner, because time also matters when these things go down or there's something that could disrupt the school day.
Yeah, I understand. And my concern with some of the maintenance costs is I know that we do essentially open POs with those companies, and that it just kind of racks up, and then once we meet that, we open a new PO.
We only do open POs now with we only do them with cooperative companies.
I understand, and I can appreciate that. However, to your comment earlier about clubs or schools, like, if you give them a budget of this much, they're probably gonna find a way to meet that. And I know that time is of the essence, but when we have known maintenance that we're gonna have to have scheduled, that's somewhere where I would hope that we're, again, maybe trying to.
I totally understand.
Can I talk about this for a second? Because maintenance, so I take care of several homes, okay? So I have certain vendors that I use, because when I have a client whose AC goes down, I need my vendor to come out that day. I can't wait. And so
But you call multiple.
No,
and you
I
have a list
don't.
of multiple.
No, I have one AC vendor that I use. And when a community member came and said, well, you're using the highest price company, I went back and I researched of what they were charging us. They're charging us $97 an hour. And I will let you know that most repair guys, whether it's pool, appliance, AC, are $125 an hour or more. So because the company we use is part of the co-op, we get it at $97 an hour. So we are already getting a 30% discount that they take us from $125 down to $97. So if we had to get 3 bids every time an AC unit went down, our staff would be without AC for weeks. It takes, to get vendors to come out, vendors are so busy. If I had to get a vendor to come out and give me a quote on an AC unit, my clients would be down without AC probably for at least a week. It wouldn't be the same day. They don't give you top priority if you don't use them consistently. And so I use the same AC vendor all year for all of my clients.
I disagree a little bit, because I actually do property management as well, and in town, and the person that I work for owns 8 units, and between those we've had 4 air conditioning units go out this year, and we used 2 different companies because the first one that we were using overcharged us by a couple of thousands on the 2 jobs that we did. And so that's why, even though that, you know, they're really good at getting to us on time and real quick, we found another company that was just as willing to be quick because they wanted the job too. So we're
But-
not helping ourselves out by not pursuing
But there's
or
also
ever
certain
opening the
companies
door.
that work on industrial as well. That's the other thing is these
Yeah.
are commercial units. These are not your typical train unit, you know, at an 18 SEER that they can come in and work on. They're industrial units. So you also have to find a company that does industrial work. You know, I have one AC guy who does wine chillers. Like, I don't have another one. They're just not, they don't exist. I can't find another one. I've tried. You know, and so that's the other thing is that it's not, you can't call up you know, Mike Jones at Discount Air or Red Mountain Air and say, hey, can you come out and check our AC units? It doesn't work.
Well,
They're
and
not
I-
industrial.
Yeah, I know, Mike.
I do
Well, no,
too.
but-
So-
And on
He doesn't
top
work
of
on
that,
the rollers.
though, it's, the companies that do this kind of work are the companies you're gonna find on these types of cooperatives because they do it for companies across the state. The second thing is that if you're gonna do a 3 bid on every single thing like that, then you have to invest in more employees to do that. You know, when I was asked to look into one item, I did it myself. It took me the entire day to get one quote back, okay? So then you're starting to put in money into human capital now that has to come in and do all that additional work. And then are you seeing any savings on top of that from paying someone to do all that additional work? I can tell you that a perfect example, Hawkeye Electric. When the new scoreboard came in, there was some confusion between, you know, the Booster Club and John, what they worked on, and we had a football game that night, and there was no power to the old scoreboard. They came out within 45 minutes, and it was up and running again, because they knew how to fix it, they knew what was going on, and those types of things, those relationships with those people help. And so I'm not saying, like, I will tell you, if it's something that we feel we can look for pricing, feel like we can get a better deal on it, we do that. We take the time to look at that. But when you're talking about some of these units that are massive and there's not a lot of people you can call other than those people that are on those cooperatives. And then what if they come in and they do bad work and you're calling out somebody else now to fix something that they didn't do. So you tend to use what works, and I have not seen anything. In fact, going through one project all the way through, the savings were enormous going through the cooperative. So again,
I've said this before, I understand why the co-op and that, essentially that loophole exists of not needing to get 3 bids. It's there for a reason, for sure. But the process of procurement that asks us to get 3 bids is there for a reason. So I
but
just
they've
always
done the 3
reiterate.
bids. They just do it for you. So it's kind of like the best example I've heard from people that, like other superintendents that use these, is it's kind of like if you have a small business and you're gonna provide your own health insurance to those employees versus joining in with a cooperative group to do that. We do that with our health insurance already. Our health insurance, we're not the only ones that are associated with that. There's multiple organizations that are associated with that because it drives the cost down and it makes it more affordable for people to do that. We are like a small business. We are a very small district with very limited staff and resources to go through and do all that additional bidding it would require us to hire at least one person, if not 2, in my opinion, if you're gonna do it on every single purchase.
I think if we took a serious look at some of our finances and some of the expenses, we would find enough money in there to pay someone to do that job. I mean, John stood up here and told us about how he got a contract back with a vendor that we've been using for years, and they had jumped 18%. And the second that he said, we're gonna go with someone else, they came back and said, oh, that was a mistake, it's only 2%. I think that if you push back and you say, hey, we're looking, it puts a fire under people to make sure that they're honest. And I'm not saying that we won't find the best price at the co-op still. I'm just saying anytime that we have the opportunity to look for.
And we do, the
bids, we
football
should.
field, you know, I pushed back on them and got $45,000 back. We do push back on people when we don't get the right service, but these companies don't want to get removed from the co-op. So they are more responsive to the needs of those organizations because they want to stay on it. And adding a person would tilt that pie chart to administrative costs even more than it
Well,
already is.
I have offered my time before, volunteer. I do administrative work all the time, and one of the things I could absolutely do is look for bids.
Okay, hold on, Lillian has a question.
Yeah, it's not a question, it's a statement. When I went to the law conference from the School Board Association, I did go to the procurement meeting, and it says district purchases must meet state procurement thresholds. The first one says no competitive process for purchases less than 10,000. Second one says informal solicitation for awards between 10,000 and 99,999. Third is formal solicitations required for procurements of 100,000 or more. And then it says exceptions, sole source. And you might explain what some of these are. One of sole source we understand, IGA, and that says permits two or more public agencies to contract for services or jointly exercise powers common to the parties without having to use a procurement process. Number
IGA
three
and
is cooperatives, emergency, so obviously we understand what that is. And the last one is GSA contracts. Those are permit school districts and eligible charter schools to take advantage of federal government supply schedules known as government service administration contracts. So that is why we don't have to go every time to look for somebody, because they have been taken care of. And the main thing is those exceptions.
Yeah.
And there are certain things like, Dr. J had mentioned, we have sole source providers for certain
And we
things.
reduced a lot of sole source. That was one of the first things I did, is I came in and I said, when's the last time this list was even checked? And I had Nancy call every single one, and they were kind of like shocked, why are you guys calling us? And there were a lot on there that shouldn't have been. So we've reduced those. Believe me, every time we spend, it's less money for projects we want to do. Like, I got a lot of projects, I got a lot of ideas, but if we spend the money on, however we spend it, it just reduces the total number I have to keep employees, to keep projects moving forward, to do new things. So all large purchases now come through me. I check them off. I have a conversation I had one today with an employee on a large purchase, and I still haven't signed off on it yet because I still need to know more about it. And we're able to do that a little bit more now that we have a team that's been together. That's the other thing, is the amount of turnover in this district office is not helping things. It's just not. When you lose someone like Karen for 20 years, replacing her, even though Tammy's doing great, and she's awesome, it's still gonna take time to get to that level. And you've had so much turnover in this district office for the last 5 years that it makes it harder to do some of those things. So we're cleaning that up.
Well, and that's another reason that I think we should have things systematized in a way that it's not a mess every time we change people, because I feel like that's been the excuse, honestly, for too long. People stop accepting it as a reason, and it just
But
sounds
you
like an
only have one
excuse when it's
person
turnover,
in-
turnover.
in that department. So if you had multiple people, maybe, but yes, and we've talked about, making sure that people are trained for multiple jobs, and being able to step in when we have a change in employment. But yeah, it's a very complicated process.
Libby has a question now.
I just have a quick question. What is the threshold you consider for the large purchases? What's that value?
I've been saying anything over 5,000, I want to see it. Yeah. I mean, if it's, and the other thing is Tammy's really good at, she knows, her and I've had a lot of conversations about.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I just.
Stay close.
We've had a lot of conversations about what, if it doesn't look like it's something historical we've needed, or it looks out of place, run it by me and let me take a look at it, just so I can have a better understanding of it. And like I said, I want to go back and say we've closed all open POs to an extent. There are a couple, I don't want to be accused of not being honest here. There are a couple that we've had to leave open to make it easier for some of the employees to do their job. I think we have, like, Safeway, is that one?
Safeway is one,
And it's a very low number.
Amazon, we do keep open,
Yeah.
and then some of our maintenance ones, like Bel Air.
But those are on co-ops. I'm talking about the ones that are not on Amazon's on a co-op, right?
No,
I'm-
I don't think they're
Is it
co-op.
Ace Hardware
I
was one?
I believe Amazon.
Amazon's on the co-op?
I believe it is.
Amazon's a cool.
I believe it is. I will double check, but I believe it is. But regardless, we also put into place, though, the people who are overseeing that now. So Michelle Smout is overseeing that Safeway one. Michelle's been here a long time. I trust her. She's not gonna overspend that. She's gonna come to me when it's approaching that limit. So those are some things we did to change up the process. In the past, I think it was just an open PO, and it was just, you found out after the fact that it went over 10,000. We've really cut back on that. We've really put in a lot of thresholds and new procedures and policies, and we haven't heard officially back yet from the Auditor General, but I can just say that the time they spend here, I'm very, very pleased and confident of where that's gonna go.
And Madison, I would agree with you on new purchases, like if we need a whole new AC system, new HVAC system, that we look at other companies, that maybe just because Bel Air has has an open PO with us and they're part of the co-op, that we don't necessarily go, okay, yeah, let's go with it. But for maintenance, I think that's the biggest thing, is that those maintenance items, when they're looking at something and they're like, this needs a new capacitor, we can't say, okay, we'll stop what you're doing and let us go out and get 3 bids on a capacitor. Like, we've got to get the units up and running. If we have to purchase new items, I totally get getting 3 bids, and I will agree with you on that. But you also have to make sure that they're apples to apples. That just because someone looks at it and goes, oh yeah, we can do it for this, and then they come in and then they find out that it's not quite what they thought it was, and then all of a sudden you have all these extra charges. But like the playgrounds tonight, that, there aren't, yes, they're part of a co-op, but there's nobody else that does it. There's only 2 playground companies, Dave Bang and Exerplay for the most part. So it wouldn't matter. You can't go out and get 3 bids. They don't exist. So
Well, and let me give you another example. Fruit Group for technology. When we went down that road, that was a new thing. We researched like crazy. Chris and I, we went and we looked at we called every contact we could find. Nicely Done Consulting, Richie, we went back and we found as many people as we could find. And then when we found Fruit Group, Chris called and checked with organizations that used them and did a background. Like, are you comfortable with them? Do you feel like they do good work? Then when it was time to purchase, I was very nervous because it was like one of my first big ones. Brought it to you guys. Before I brought it to you, though, we ran it through our consultants. We ran it through the county. Remember, I called the county even to make sure it was okay. Like, we were so meticulous on that because that was a big purchase and it was something that you don't do very often. And ultimately, it came down to there's not a lot of people that do what Fruit Group does. So that did factor in. But there's other examples of where, like the televisions we bought. We bought them all on Black Friday deals. Krista spent a day looking for Amazon, Best Buy, Target, and we landed on the cheapest ones that we could find that did what we wanted them to do, and that's what we ended up purchasing. So sometimes you can't. Apple for iPads, there's no one else. If you want an iPad, they're the only one. So we do look at that, but on new purchases. But I agree with Jill, when you're talking about keeping buses and maintenance and all these things running, you have to bring in the companies that can do the work and that they can do it at a high level and do it right. And I think if you start.
And in a timely fashion.
And in a timely fashion. And I think if you move away from those companies, you're bringing in people that are probably not qualified to do it, to be honest.
Yeah, I see the point of the co-op. I just think that given the atmosphere of wanting fiscal responsibility, that's something we can address. So when we budget for maintenance, because there's routine maintenance, and then there's also the life of these systems, or kind of bigger maintenance that we can expect, and then there's always, obviously, the unexpected issues. Do we budget for those bigger expenses? Like, did we, when we installed all of the HVAC that apparently had a 10-year lifespan, was there a plan in place to have enough money to replace them at that 10-year mark? Do we do that?
I don't know about that one specifically, but I can just say that there is money set aside for rainy day issues that we do have budgeted, so that we, like I said, when Tyler gave you that number back in December of consolidation budget number, he felt comfortable with that, knowing that we have capital and M&O type reserves available for something that comes up that is unexpected. And we keep that number very high. I mean, I think it's really, I think for our size of a district, we're doing well. Could it be better? Sure, you can continue to build upon it, but that money is there for a rainy day.
Is that a budgeted amount that goes into a set aside pot that accumulates, kind of like a carry forward? Is that how that happens? Because I haven't gotten those answers yet, but.
We do set up an annual amount for maintenance and operations, and then if it's not used, we do roll it into the next year and kind of hold it.
Okay.
But we do actually set aside money for regular maintenance, and we do look at the life of the unit or the item before we move forward with anything.
And so that balance can roll forward, and as long as it just stays in that like maintenance pot, it's good to be used for maintenance at any time in the future.
It's part of the maintenance and operations budget, so.
And so
maintenance
that's
and
just the carry
operations,
forward that we
it's a
experience.
carry forward of the
Okay.
maintenance and operations. And just like your AC unit at home, you know, you schedule like your maintenance and you like every year,
Well, you know, like when you have to replace filters and that there's
Right.
gonna be that cost, and then
And
you
so,
know.
you know, and so like I said, like if your AC company comes out and they're like, you need a capacitor, it's like, okay, we'll go ahead and replace the capacitor. And then the next year they come out, they're like, hey, well, you know, now you need this, and you're like, okay, replace that. And so little by little, your AC unit that is going to be 20 years old at some point, you've maintained it and you've fixed things along the way, but at some point, it just doesn't become cost effective to fix it anymore.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, at
And
some point
so-
you have to do a replace,
But
which
just
is a
like the
big
normal
expense.
homeowner, you know, like if my AC unit went out today, I'm probably gonna have to finance it, or I'm going to have to like figure out how to pay for it, because over the last 20 years, I haven't said, okay, this year I'm gonna set aside $1,000. Like, you know, if they came to me and said you need an AC unit for 15,000, I don't have 15,000.
I understand, and
That's
homes,
the problem.
homes are different, because
It's
I would be
not.
the same, no, I would be the same, but this
Right.
is, we're a public service entity, and when we have 10 AC units or whatever, like 7 at the middle school that was recently talked about, and we know that all of them were installed at the same time and they all have a 10-year
But they weren't all
lifespan,
installed at the same time.
we probably need to have a plan in place for when that time comes, that we're gonna need to replace more than one at the same
We've never
time.
had enough capital money to
Yeah,
to really.
that's where it comes down
that's
to,
where-
is
yeah. You're
the
assuming
capital
that.
funding that comes in is used up getting through the year on the things that, you know, that you.
Right, there's no
that you-
savings
you
there.
have.
Well, that's what I'm asking, is
There has
there,
been.
so there's not any, in the budgeting, we don't have a set amount that's determined to be used for maintenance ongoing, like not just like I mean,
So
the way you.
maintenance is different than capital. Capital is what would pay for new HVAC units. Maintenance and operations pays for the actual maintenance. They're two separate pots.
Okay, so in the capital, there's no plan for these big replacements?
No, because we've never had enough capital money to actually like say, okay, well, we're gonna save this. I mean, there has been some savings along the way, but no, if we had to turn around and say we need to replace 10 AC units, no, we do not have enough capital money on a yearly basis to do that.
But
What
we
is
have-
what is the
we-
consolidation money considered,
But we-
capital or maintenance?
That was capital money.
Yes. So what
Okay.
but here's what we did. She runs me a report of expenditures, like when we looked at last year and the year before. There were things that we cut out to free up additional money to carry forward. Okay, so that is kind of how we do that, right? But again, when you're talking about solving a web of problems, from from teacher salary to building maintenance to enrollment to, you can't do it all. So you have to pick priorities. And the only thing that's going to drive this district forward is student growth. That's it. No students, no growth.
But something has to drive the student growth. The student growth is a symptom itself
I
of
would
a
love-
good district.
I ask
So
every
there
meeting I
has-
have, give me an idea of how to grow that.
I mean, I've given you ideas, and I think we're working on some of them, and I think that we'll move forward with those, but.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of needs, and you just can't do it all with what we have. So we have to find a way to manage. And I will tell you, one of the things I'm very proud of in the year that my team's been working is the appearance of our buildings in 1 year is night and day. I'm so proud of the work that we've done in those buildings. They may have issues on the outside, and they may have issues, that need to be repaired. But when you walk through them, they're clean, they look nice. Teachers are very happy with their spaces that they have, and we've done a lot in a year to make those things look good. That's a lot of preventative maintenance that has been deferred for a long time that is now done. Now we have to go back, like I said, every summer and keep them up. So we have to put money aside for painting and for, whatever we're talking about in each building that we need to do.
I guess what I'm not understanding is how we have all this deferred maintenance if the budget carry forward essentially came from things that could have covered some of these projects. Like the roof, is that something that could be covered with capital funds?
If you buy
If you buy a
the
new
whole
one.
thing.
Right, but see, that's
So like
the
a
thing.
repair would have to come from
From
maintenance,
right.
but a replacement would come
Right,
from.
and the other thing you need to remember is, so up until last year, we would get 1.3 million approximately
Yeah.
in capital money. But last year, when the capital override didn't
2 years
pass,
ago.
2 years ago,
Went down to 6.
now we get 600,000.
So that override money.
In capital?
In
Yeah, so
capital.
that override money is what Rob was putting away for the known fact that there would be a time where we would have to consolidate.
And you can transfer some capital money into M&O. You cannot transfer M&O into capital,
Mhm.
right? Yes. So,
Well, then, so again, why do we have all this deferred maintenance if we essentially had
well,
some
because
capital
we
money
tried
that went
to
carry
use our
forward?
M&O to actually pay our teachers.
Yeah,
But
you
that
solve one
wasn't
problem
happening
and another
either.
problem
Our teachers have
exists.
gotten a raise for the
Yeah,
last several
finally.
years. So for the last several years, they've gotten a raise. Almost every year I've been on this board,
Yeah.
they've gotten a raise. And so, but there were years that they got no raises. And so we started putting teachers first and actually giving raises as opposed to painting and doing
Yeah.
things like that.
So there's always gonna be different needs that pop up, and we have to monitor, and like I said, so you wanna keep teachers, that's priority. You gotta handle that, you wanna grow students, you wanna keep the buildings up to date, you wanna support athletics, you wanna support clubs, it all has to be looked at, and you have to make decisions on what is the priority in this moment. And right now, what we decided at the beginning of last year is that student growth is the biggest priority this district faces. And if that is not addressed, then you're gonna be sitting here down the road very soon, in my opinion, if we don't fix this, where there's gonna be a talk of, do we need a high school here? Okay? And so and then it starts to be kind of a slow death. You eliminate a program here, you eliminate something here, and then every time there's going to be kids who leave. The last few conversations I've had with parents who left, it's nothing to do with us. It's we don't offer the program they want. And I can't offer everything. So I can only offer what I can offer. And so if you want a small school environment that's safe and has very limited, in my opinion, discipline and behavior issues compared to large schools, then this is the place for you. But if that's not for you, and you want something that we don't offer, like French or IB or, some athletic program, we can't do all that. So that's where it becomes an issue. And we, as much work as we're doing on enrollment and as much as we've reduced the number of kids leaving, it's a known fact. We have 145 seniors graduating at the end of this year. If I don't get 145 kindergartners in the door, we're going to be down again and again and again and again. So that has been the priority since I came in. That was the board's priority in July of 22, and that's what I've worked to try to solve. And are we there yet? No, but we made strides, for sure.
Well, and everything that you just said, I think, is why we need to be really cautious of how we're spending, because if our structural things are neglected, then, I mean, no matter how fancy or modern the things that we put in there are, we won't have a school to maintain. Sorry, I'll try to work through these quickly. So who determines when something is a need versus a want, and is there a formal process for submitting asks for projects? And the examples that I would appreciate you using are the painting of the teachers' classrooms. Was there a formal submission?
Yes.
And then also the sunglasses for our landscaper. Was there a formal submission, and is there a formal process for something like that? Because those are on both ends of the spectrum, something small, something a little bit bigger.
So the cabinet team, we meet frequently. We have scheduled meetings, and that includes myself, Alicia, Chris, Kaylee, and John. Typically that we will call maybe a principal or two in if we need their input. During those meetings, that's when we have those discussions. When we went through consolidation, we used the Asana app. That was something we used to avoid a million emails going back and forth, and we did it. It was a project management app, and we went through and we had so many conversations about wants versus needs. What do we believe is going to drive this forward? Taking feedback from students on my student advisory board, from parents through coffee sessions. That's how we decide a want versus need. Okay. When you look at what was the big one?
The teachers painting the teachers'
Oh yeah,
rooms,
we went through the whole bidding process because we ended up going with someone local, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So, because we voted on approving over 100,000 with the company that was already there painting, it wasn't that same company?
It was that same company.
It was, but
they're
what I
local.
did,
And it was in addition to another paint.
Yes, and so that, I guess that's where my question is when, we had already contracted that company, at what point did the procurement change to add the painting? When was that ask made?
okay,
How was that
so
approached?
I'll tell you why. I gave John a budget of 100,000 to paint. He did not get the whole elementary school done. There's the cafeteria, there's some rooms, there's some spaces that did not get painted because he ran out of money. That was the budget. You have 100,000 to work with. You need to stay under that is basically what I told him. That's, or right around there. We went over the 100 because Little Falcons felt a little neglected. That's on us. I get it. We were trying to get them up and running and licensed, and they came in and said, we'd like our space painted as well. And so we went back to John went out and saw who was available in the time frame that was available. That company was available, and so that's why we brought it to you. But yeah, we did do the bidding process, right? We did get 3 bids for the painting. We did not use a cooperative for the painting.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then what is the formal process for an ask like that? Do teachers send an email? Is there a way to log a ticket where they're like, hey, we'd like this done, or how does that happen?
There's definitely, there's the formal way would be for them to go to their principal and say, this is a need that I have. And then the principal would then meet with us and have that conversation. I will say one of the reasons, and maybe this is a fault of mine, but I'm so active on the campuses and so available to people that they feel comfortable coming up to me and saying, hey, I want paint too, right? Or I need this. And so then I have to go back and say, okay, well, let me look into it. Let me get back to you and see if I can make it happen. And maybe that's something that I need. I don't know. I think if I don't do that, then, people might take that as a negative. So we're small, and being small, we're able to do those things. But yes, typically it needs to go through the principal. And the principal has to feel like this is a need that I want to go to my superintendent with and say that this is something we need to do. Sometimes the answer is no. But we don't get a lot of those requests from our staff, I'll be honest, we just don't.
I do appreciate you being available, but I think it would be good to have them go through the process of, I mean, it's not bad for you to know, but I would suggest they go through the process that is expected. And then with something as small as the sunglasses, you know, was there a formal ask for that? What was the process for that procurement?
My
That's on John.
Yeah, that's John's team, and John, you know, if part of his, you know, he wants to provide for safety and make sure that those employees have what they need, like I said before, I look at that as very similar to someone asking for a stand-up desk or, you know, a filter for their screen to protect their eyes. I mean, when you don't provide people with the tools or the safety equipment that they need, then I think it becomes a bigger issue if something happens. So once we saw that, we did tell John that, you know, we want to know that moving forward. If that is an area of concern for the community that was purchased, then we want to know about it, and we will ask you to bring it to us for approval.
I can agree to making sure that people's needs are met and even to the point of making their jobs comfortable. Like I'm not trying to split hairs with that. However, I think it's important, especially again as a public service entity, that we have a process even for something as small as that. Just because, you know, if we are going to make it a habit to provide things like that, there needs to be, you know, like a budget amount. It needs to be a process, because you don't.
It doesn't normally happen.
Well, we can say that, but I don't think that it's good to have something that casual and have it not addressed and fixed.
Well, they
John-
can't, they don't have an open PO anymore.
Yeah,
They were
we took
closed.
that back, and John was, when I talked to him, he was aware. And so, again, like, this is it's a very unique situation, it's a very small purchase, and in John's mind, that provided his employees with what they needed to be safe and successful in their job, okay? So, we closed the ACE PO, open PO, and we just had one the other day. Now they needed some right away, and here's the effect of that. They had to drive to a different ACE hardware to get it. And so there's positives and negatives to doing it that way. So I'm trying to make sure that our audit is better, and so for me, I said, you know, you need to order in advance, but we're finding out that sometimes they need stuff, and we may need to revisit that open PO, because if we're gonna have people driving to other locations when we could get it right here, then I don't think that's doing anything positive. Right?
So, I have a question. Why would they drive to another location?
I'd have to ask John. John said that maybe there was, I don't know. I'd have to ask him, but he brought it up to me. He was a little concerned about that. It had been closed, and said that, and maybe it was a different vendor they had to go to, that was part of the co-op. I don't know, how to ask him, okay? But when you close out those things, and my response is we can't have audit findings for things like this, so we have to fix it. And, you know, when people do it the right way, and you don't have audit findings, then you can do those types of things, but when you do, you gotta fix it. So yeah, I would say it's not easy to purchase anything in our district at this point.
Okay, let's get through Mr. Madison's questions.
The co-op process with new vendors, there was a public comment that I felt was concerning. When we have someone that comes to the school with services, interested in working with us, and we tell them about the opportunity to get on board with the co-op, I guess I just want to make sure that we're not presenting it as a way to make it easier to give them work with less.
I don't think we should be involved in that at all. They need to go get their own co-op stuff done, or they need to go and make their own pitch to us. Anyone typically who wants to meet with me, I meet with. If they have something that they want to offer, I've met with, I can't think of anyone I've ever turned away that has.
Well, what
wanted
I
to meet
mean
with
is,
me.
From my understanding, a vendor, a potential vendor, came in to speak with the district to do IT work and was essentially told, if you become part of a
Who is the
co-op,
vendor?
David Valco. It was a public comment made a while back.
And I can tell you, when I met with him specifically,
Okay.
he did not have, at that time, his company set up and ready to do work.
Well, I'm not talking about that. I'm not
Okay.
talking about work, essentially even working with him. I'm talking about what his comment was that it was presented to him that if he became part of a co-op, it would be easier to work with him because there would be less roadblocks. And to me, that's concerning because he came away from that feeling that it would, I mean, he could he thought it was a really good gig. He could charge really
I
good
don't
rates
remember
and that there wouldn't be
I don't remember saying that,
roadblocks.
if that was the impression. I remember the conversation as, you know, that we walked away from that conversation that he did not have his business in place at the time and was unable to conduct business in that moment, and I needed a IT service provider right away for SIPA. And
This was his comment. He said, "I've explored becoming a vendor to the school district. The district told me that I should join the Mojave Cooperative and that it would make it easier to work with me. I was also told that jobs under 100,000 don't need multiple bids if they're dealing with a member of the cooperative, speeding up the procurement process. The Mojave Cooperative is an organization that vets contractors on behalf of government entities in Arizona, including public school districts like ours. While the vetting process sets various aspects of how a vendor can bill a client, it does not ensure competitive bidding. But in order to be part of the co-op, you have to be licensed, bonded, and insured." So,
But was that conversation with me or with somebody else?
I don't know.
It
It
doesn't
just says
say.
the
Okay,
district.
I'm just gonna
It's-
say, I don't
it's
remember
very
that
vague.
conversation, and that was so early in my superintendency, I don't even think I knew what Mojave was at that point, but I could be wrong. But I don't remember that. I do remember meeting, and I do remember taking the time, but at that time, he could not fulfill our needs, and we needed to move forward with a different company.
Okay. I guess with that, my encouragement would just be to make sure that I would love to work with people and to have them get on the co-op so that we can have that ease of access, because I think it is important, you know, especially with something like IT, to be able to call up someone that you know and that you trust to say, hey, we need this fixed right away. I understand the relationship with co-ops, but I think it's good to encourage the competition so that we
And
make sure.
I'm gonna be honest, we don't use co-ops for everything. You've just seen a lot of co-ops because of consolidation.
Okay.
And you're seeing a lot of co-ops because of maintenance needs that we've already discussed earlier tonight. When it comes to projects, we do look at the best price. I mean, we have. But there was only one company that could provide full IT support for an entire school district in this area that was available, that we could find.
I'm not splitting hairs about
Yeah.
who we went with, it's more just about the process of
Yeah.
interviewing them and
And
the co-op.
if you are interested in working with schools and organizations, I would imagine that it would be for most businesses, it would be a priority to get a part of that so that you can be a part of that competitive pricing and offer your services to more people than just people who are looking for you. It allows you to put yourself out there, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
I appreciate
Yeah.
the candid conversation. Thank you, Alicia.
okay.
Yes, absolutely, go ahead.
So I have one question, and it's due to my lack of knowledge. When we get an over 100 approval and there is a specific job attached to that, are we as a board, when we agree to that over 100 purchase with that specific job, are we giving approval then for any job with that particular vendor?
No, just for the project that we're working on at that.
I know, I
then-
want to, yeah, sorry, you can go ahead, I won't step back.
So that's my question, is kind of regarding Summit Signs, and I'm a little confused with what happened with that, because there was, the board packet came with it, and then I didn't, and then it changed and was updated. So I am concerned that that isn't necessarily the case, and I just want to know for future items,
Yeah.
when that happens, are we?
I would
Giving
say
that approval.
that on the marquee, that would have been, yes, like that marquee, the way it was presented to me was at that cost, okay?
Yeah.
Then I went back and I worked with them, and that ended up not being the cost, it was lower than that, okay? So, and the guy we worked with is no longer with the company. It has been kind of a mess, and I'm gonna say, not real impressed right now with them, okay? And if I have more signs to buy, probably not gonna use them again, okay? But there was, for that project, that was, the way it was presented to me and my team was that it was gonna be 119, whatever, what, they came in under that. So yes, there's times where we come to you and say, we're still gonna spend over 100,000 with this company. We did that earlier in the year with a variety of companies, Bel Air, and so they're different projects, but it's still alerting you as a board that this company is gonna exceed that procurement issue. And so with Summit West, it's still going to, the multiple projects that, and to be honest with you, some of them haven't even started yet. They may not even end up being done, because this guy that left the company did not do all the work he was supposed to do. So we may not end up using all that. We may end up going with another sign company for certain projects. The only thing that's been done that is the facial, or whatever you call it, the redesign of the McDowell Mountain sign and the wording outside the district office, which has come to a total of, I'm gonna guess, 30, 40,000, something like that. So right now, we are in conversation of whether we're even going to use them for these other signs. We might be going with a different company for them. So we haven't gone over 100,000 yet with them.
Well, but to that point, I think the concern, because it was confusing, the original approval and the vote reads approve spending over 100,000 with Summit Signs on the vote, the approval. And attached was the what do you call it, proposal for 119,000. And in the description of the vote, it said for the high school marquee. When it came back to us, or middle school, yeah, I don't know why I keep thinking it's high school. Middle school marquee. So then when it came back to us in that board packet, it said that it was brought to us again because it was a new fiscal year, and so they thought that we needed to reapprove it because it was a new fiscal year. However, I noticed that the wording had changed, and now it said for approval over 100,000 with Summit Signs. But in the description, instead of saying middle school marquee, it said middle school marquee and all district signage. And there was no proposal that time. So I brought that up, and then it was removed because it was decided that there was no new vote needed because the approval was over $100,000, and even though it rolled into the next fiscal year, we were okay because we had voted on it. So then my concern was that we voted and approved spending over $100,000, and now we have no idea what the actual proposal or what the actual project was, because it looked like there was some change that happened, even though the vote didn't change. And so I believe what we voted on was approval of spending over 100,000 regardless of whatever the project is.
That's how it always is with procurement.
And I believe that
And
that
so
is,
it,
yeah.
just like tonight, you know, yes, he gave you a proposal for Extra Play, but the board's vote is to approve spending over $100,000 for that vendor.
And so then by that, I mean, not saying that he would do this, but then he could then go and get more equipment with Extra Play without bringing it to the board again.
Technically.
And so that's where I think the concern is, you know,
But
then
that's-
we feel like we don't know what we're voting on.
I understand, and that one, again, was, and it was not just that one, it was also Dave Bang we were worried about, because we're trying to do things so by the book and do them right, that we overdid that by saying, we're gonna bring it to you again, and then Dave said, no, you don't have to. But
But the
we wanted
concern-
to, because we didn't wanna have any kind of concern come back with the audit that you approved this in May and it didn't get delivered until November. So that's why we did that.
Okay, but what I'm saying is the concern was we were told it was simply the timing of the vote, when it looks like the meaning of the vote kind
Okay,
of
well, we
changed, or
can,
like
we
the,
can, we can
you know what I
improve our
mean?
communication on
Okay,
that, okay?
thank you.
But know that if we spend over that amount, and we've done it on everyone we brought, that hits 100, that she knows if it's gonna hit, we're not buying it, and we need to bring it to you guys before we do it. We've cleaned up a lot of these things, and so I know we tend to, a lot of times, focus on always what needs to be better, but sometimes we also need to celebrate what is going well, because the people that work for us, the people who are doing this work, just like any human being, needs to hear from time to time, thank you, and you're doing a good job. And that is why I believe we have a lot of our employees coming back, is they do feel that way internally in this organization, but I don't think they always feel that way all from everybody. And I just think that's something we can all work on, is pointing out some positives too, and not always focusing on everything that could be perceived as a negative.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up the procurement at this point. If you have more questions, please submit them to Dr. J and Alicia.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, future action, budget discussion. Libby, I have that scheduled for January 17th.
Okay.
So if you could get your questions and kind of where you want to drive that by maybe the end of December. That way Krista has time to send it out to, because unfortunately, by the time she got Madison's stuff and sent it out, we did not get all the information back when it has to go out to multiple people. So poor Alicia had to come here before the firing squad. But so if you could do that by the end of the year, then that'll give her 2 weeks, especially since we're on break for part of that. So January 17th, I have you scheduled. I will work on getting Golden Eagle scheduled as a future action item. Dates of upcoming meetings, next week on Wednesday, we'll have November 15th, and then December 6th. December 6th, I believe we actually will start with an executive session. That's not listed, but I will double check that. And with that,
I move we adjourn, sorry.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Yeah, that's, the attorney will take care of that.
Sure. They don't have any report? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where that was sent, because she gives me all the mail.
I don't know, but.
Right, but Krista would give that to me. There was no, I mean, there was no mail. No, I've never, not seen this either. So I would like to know where she sent that letter, because I don't know if she sent it